Welcome to Picking Up the Pieces. Everyone who is listening, I am so glad you are here. My name is Joanna Seidel, and I am a child and family therapist practicing for over 20 years. Throughout my career, I have had the deep privilege of working with thousands of individuals and families. I have specialized in separation and divorce, and that is where my extensive experience lies, and in high conflict family dynamics. My clinical work has extended far beyond that. I have supported individuals striving to improve their relationships, guided children through difficult transitions, and helped parents navigate the complexities of custody and co-parenting. Over the years, my clients have deeply informed my approach to therapy. Their courage, vulnerability, and growth have been some of my greatest teachers. It has been the greatest privilege of my life to walk alongside people as they confront their fears, resolve long-standing struggles, and build better lives. Through this podcast, I want to give back. I want to share what I've learned, offer support, and create a space for healing and connection. I also want to invite your questions so we can explore together the real issues people face every single day. In addition to being a therapist, I am the clinical director of Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation. We are a full-service therapy and mediation clinic located in the heart of Toronto, with 2 locations and a team of 25 incredible therapists, mediators, and professionals. We work with children, teens, adults, couples, family, co-parents, and even business partners. Basically, anyone trying to navigate relationships and life. We help people through every stage of life. We offer in-person and virtual sessions tailored to everyone's unique journey. We are a one-stop shop. I want to invite our listeners into the work that we do every day. The real work of healing, growing, and making sense of life issues and discussing how to navigate them. I am deeply passionate about the work that I do, and I want to make the therapeutic tools accessible to everyone, not just our clients at Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation. This is my first podcast episode, but definitely not my first time talking about real life issues, relationships, and mental health. I feel like I have been sitting on a gold mine of information, insight, tools, and stories, and it is time to pay it forward. If you have ever been stuck, overwhelmed, or just feel like something was not clicking, you are not alone. I have seen it all. Couples on the brink of separation who are now thriving, parents struggling to connect with their teens, and high achievers who feel completely burnt out and overwhelmed. Every story matters. This show is not about fixing anyone. It's about giving you the tools to support the life you want to build. This is a safe space, and I want to break the silence around what we are all going through and make therapy part of the everyday conversation that we have with each other. If I can even reach one person every show and help them facilitate change in their lives, I have done something good and I have achieved my goal. I want to provide free and practical advice and highlight the work we are doing with our clients. I also want to mention that therapy is for everyone. That's right. It is for everyone, not just people in crisis. It is a tool, just like the gym, just like good nutrition. You do not need to wait until your heart stops to start doing cardio. Isn't that right? Therapy helps you stay emotionally regulated, grounded, and tuned into your life. It helps you navigate stress, relationships, change, parenting, trauma, grief, boundaries, and burnout. Living life and being part of a family is not about achieving perfection. It is about resilience, clarity, and connection. Whether you are going through a divorce, navigating parenting challenges in a new relationship, managing depression or anxiety, or trying to break generational patterns, therapy has something to offer for everyone. I would really like you to meet our team during this podcast and learn what we offer. Our team at Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation is the heart of our clinic. We have child and adolescent therapists, couples and marriage specialists, family therapists, expressive art therapists, trauma-informed practitioners, mediators, and Section 30 assessors, divorce coaches, addiction therapists, supervised access workers, and therapists who specialize in client burnout, workplace stress, neurodivergence, ADHD, and more. Our goal is to meet you wherever you're at in your life and support you with the right tools to help you thrive. I'm going to share with you insights from my clinical experience, practical strategies you can use right away, and I'm going to share conversations with experts, both from my team and outside professionals who are doing incredible therapeutic work. This podcast is about you, your life, your relationships, your mental health, your growth. We are going to talk about real life things. For example, conflict with your in-laws, parenting meltdowns, how to co-parent with a difficult ex, and how to reconnect in your marriage, or how to heal from toxic relationships. You are going to hear voices from my teams. For example, the therapist who helps kids with anxiety, the one who works with high conflict divorces, the couples counselor who sees love stories rekindled. And together we will give you tools, perspective, and I hope, a little bit of hope. Let's talk about why therapy matters. Therapy gives you emotional strength. It allows you to show up for your kids, show up for your partner, do your job successfully, and show up for yourself. It helps you process, reframe, and plan, not just vent, but make plans to move forward. It helps you become self-aware, learn your patterns, triggers, and blind spots. And therapy builds relationship, not just romantic ones, but the ones you have with yourself. Think of therapy as emotional cross-training for life. I am so super excited to introduce one of the therapists on our team, Nicole Khaitman, who will be joining me on this podcast today. Nicole is an exceptional therapist with many years of experience, and our clients truly love working with her. She brings a deep well of clinical knowledge to every session and has a remarkable ability to be both direct, kind, and compassionate. Nicole has made a meaningful difference in so many people's lives, offering clarity, support, and real tools for change. I am so thrilled to have her voice, insight, and experience as part of these conversations. I am super excited to meet one of the most fabulous therapists that I have ever met. Her name is Nicole Khaitman, and she is on my team, and I have the privilege of her joining in this podcast. She is an exceptional therapist with many years of experience, and our clients truly value the work that she does with them. She brings a well of deep clinical knowledge to each session and has the remarkable ability to be both direct, kind, and compassionate. Nicole has made a meaningful difference in so many people's lives, offering clarity, support, tools, and change. And I'm really thrilled to have her here and be part of our team of expertise and be part of these really important conversations. So let's start with a few questions. So, Nicole, can you tell us who's coming to therapy these days?
Sure. I think people from areas of all walks of life come to therapy: children, youth, families, individuals, anybody who might be struggling or might want to kind of connect with themselves a little bit more, tend to seek out some supports for themselves, and it's always very beneficial for them.
And why does therapy matter, even if you're doing fine? Like, even if everything's okay, why would therapy matter? Why would you benefit from that?
I think it gives people an opportunity to really connect with themselves, people who don't really typically um, you know, know themselves very well. It causes or provides an ability to provide self awareness, resilience, maybe just discovering what it might feel like to even speak out loud can cause a lot of healthy benefits for some. Just airing out their laundry, whether it's dirty or not. Is very therapeutic and cathartic for a lot of clients, and it's very beneficial for them.
What I'm finding is that clients are under so much pressure these days. So they may look fine from the outside, and you may see them, they might be achieving at work, raising their children. Their children may even be excelling, but they may be really struggling inside because of that pressure, because of this idea that they always have to be doing everything right.
I completely agree. You know, it's the phenomenon of perfectionism and everyone having to do it all perfectly, and be superhuman. But we're not. We're imperfect. We're flawed. We have issues. We need help. And seeking therapy really provides that outlet for them to figure out and be okay and have validation that it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to make mistakes. No one's going to have it all or do it all.
I say that line every day, that I'm just not perfect. Every day I have a real moment of anxiety where I screwed up. I made a mistake and I'm about to kill myself for it. And it's about to ruminate in my mind and I'm about to get really mad at myself. And then I just remind myself I'm not perfect. And I think that helps. What do you think about that?
I think it does help. I think that everyone has the tendency to ruminate or perseverate on things. Allow yourself to do that for a few seconds and then let it go and move on and do those positive affirmations, those affirmations where you tell yourself that, no, you aren't the most negative thoughts and it isn't who you are, right? Like sometimes we're our own worst enemy. And that's why the saying goes, put good thoughts in your head so good things will come.
I'm thinking about the work that you do. I'm always thinking about the work that you do because you're such a present member of our team. And I always think about the work that you do with couples because you've really had success in helping couples who are literally in the worst place they've ever been, on the brink of separation. And then all of a sudden I get feedback that things are going well. And I'm like, how did you do that? What did you do to help them reconnect?
It really starts with getting to know each client individually first, and also starting from the basics. I think a lot of these couples have ruptures in their relationships due to resentment, resistance, physiological tension. They kind of engage in a lot of negative communication patterns. And what I try to do is really get them out of it and go back to the basics. Like, can we be friends first? Half of the time, these couples, they're bickering, they're arguing, they're not on the same team, they're not on the same page, they're enemies. And so my work with them is really to break that down, chip away at the resentment, and start fresh. How did you meet? Why did you get married? Why are you in a relationship? Why are you in a common law partnership? And get them to remember the good memories. Everybody's always stuck on the negatives, right? We really want to focus back on the positives.
I love that. What I say to everybody, and again, a frequent reminder for myself, is we're not all good and we're not all bad. And our relationships don't always have to be good. That is not a realistic outcome. And so but couples forget, like they throw in the towel way too early sometimes without really doing the deep work and knowing that marriage is really about ups and downs.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And a lot of the time, you sign up for marriage, but you don't realize that you're also signing up for household managers and parenting managers and work managers and best friend managers and, life stressors managers and all of those things. And sometimes the relationship part gets put down at the bottom of the totem pole. And it's really hard to prioritize that rapport and that love and that nurturing relationship and that connection, because it just kind of falls to the waistline because you kind of take each other for granted and you think that you two are always just going to be there.
There are so many roles that you play in a marriage, 100%. Like the manager of domestic affairs. What about that role? Does that fall on women or does that fall on men now?
It falls on both, depending on what the circumstances are, right? There's a lot of role reversals now. It's just what's most crucial, Joanna, is to make sure that the duties, responsibilities, expectations are talked about, discussed, managed, prioritized, so that there is no room for disappointment. There is no room for dropping the ball. There is no room for, just more resentment to be built. It's just to have the conversations, have the communication, discuss, divvy up what are the duties, roles, and responsibilities? Who's responsible for what? Because a lot of the time couples don't talk and then things become amiss.
So I used to do so much marriage therapy. And one of the things that everybody fought about is the unbalance, like the imbalance of tasks. And I often told couples, which I really believe, that marriage and relationships don't have to be 50-50. And if that is what you're striving for, you may not get there.
I 100% agree. I think scorekeeping is a terrible, terrible thing to do in relationships. Sometimes it's going to be one way, sometimes it's going to be another. The imbalance, you got to embrace it, be okay with it because you're doing it for someone else. I think, you got to be selfless in relationships. You can't be selfish. You can't go to the ends of the earth to try and prove your point or, think things are unfair. Life's unfair. Life's shit. Life's unpredictable, right? So you're going to have to go with the flow, land on the ball of your feet, no matter which way you're thrown, and kind of be there for the other person, even if it's at the expense of yourself sometimes, because sacrifice and compromise is what makes a relationship work.
I love that. Sacrifice and compromise, right? We need to be able to shift. How are we going to be in a relationship if we can't move a little bit towards our partner, right? Like shifting and compromise is super important.
I find that rigidity is very problematic in relationships. And I think moving towards being more flexible and open and, being more empathetic and looking at it from another person's perspective really makes the world of a difference, because you can't be in a relationship if you're just focusing on yourself. That parallel arrangement does not work.
And the very first thing you mentioned is friendship, right? Like, what is a relationship without friendship? And what is friendship in a relationship? Tell us about that.
Friendship is basically mutual respect, trust, understanding, selflessness, just, shared interests, learning about each other, growing with each other, supporting one another, being each other's cheerleaders, and, just the best person you can be for one another, just like you are, in your relationships with your own friends, right? And, that's the essence. And sometimes when resentment builds, that's when things can go awry quickly, especially if it's not dealt with or unpacked in therapy. And, I see couples that have had ongoing issues for years and years and years of years. So there's a lot to unpack, but there's always hope as long as you take the time, energy out of your schedules to prioritize it.
Do you know what I love about relationships? Like the most is I love laughter and humor with everyone. Like not just your spouse, not just your best friend, but sometimes I even bring humor into my therapy sessions. And I know you do that a lot.
100%. I think joking around, sharing memes, sharing videos, having inside jokes, joking around really makes the world of a difference. But it's difficult if there is that lack of foundation, right? If there's no trust, you don't tend to feel safe or comfortable to share a laugh. You're on edge, you're on defense mode, you're ready to attack, you're ready to be in a protective stance. And so that really, eats away at the relationships, at their souls and their spirit. And so I think friendship, mutual respect, connection, just even talk first, joke later. If the talking is there, the jokes will come.
Do you know what prevents laughter?
What?
Resentment and tension. They don't allow themselves to laugh. They hold it in, even if they want to laugh. Right?
100%. I could not agree more.
And tell me, like, when do you think couples should get therapy?
Honestly, the sooner, earlier, the better, right? I really do believe that the more you communicate, the more you are able to unpack feelings, the more you understand yourselves, the less likely you are to repress feelings. And getting it out there is really the most important facet. And maintenance is important. And prioritizing your relationship and airing things out with a third neutral counselor is important, right? Because sometimes you need that extra pair of eyes and ears to help couples navigate things or see things from a different light. And it's I think, very beneficial.
Like, why do couples wait until they're literally sleeping in separate beds, only speaking when they're fighting? Like, why do they wait to come for therapy then?
I see it all the time, unfortunately. And I think it just boils back to the stigma of counseling to begin with, right? There's misconceptions about therapy. People don't like to be vulnerable. People are shy. I'm a stranger. You are paying me to talk to me, but you don't know me, right? Mm-hmm. So it's hard for people to open up. People want to be a hero a lot of the times and deal with their issues themselves, and are more private and are not flexible or open to sharing their personal woes and issues with someone new. And that's the unfortunate part, because it's tough. Therapy's not easy. It's not a walk in the park. You're going to grudge up old feelings. You're going to be emotional. You're going to be angry. You're going to be upset. And hopefully, treading through those waters will help you get to the other side. But it takes work and effort. And a lot of people, especially in this day and age with everything going on and everybody being so busy, that's the last thing they want to do. And so, it kind of falls to the waistline, even though it should be the most important thing you do for yourself, as an individual and as a spouse.
There's a slight risk to therapy, right? Or a big risk to therapy, because you're challenging who they are. You're asking people to change. You're asking couples to do something different that they haven't done in years. And one of the things you tell me, first of all, our clients say that you're a magician sometimes, that you've shifted the landscape of these relationships. And sometimes what I hear is, after many, many years of not being intimate, these couples have taken the risk and tried intimacy with each other. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you do that work?
It's a beautiful update. When I hear those updates, it makes me warm and bubbly inside that they took this leap and they did that. When they did do that, when they are physically intimate, they did notice that the emotional connection came soon thereafter. And what a lot of people think, it's almost like a chicken and egg situation. Oh, I need the emotional connection first. I don't trust. I can't be vulnerable. I can't be physically intimate without that emotional intimacy. But if you are physically intimate, the rest will come. You can joke around in bed. You can shoot the shit with one another. You can, talk about it, and it can bring good, healthy vibes and feelings after. And it stays with you. You have like a euphoric oxytocin, dopamine fix, and they don't realize that it really does make the world of a difference. Right. So that's
kind of sometimes really hard to achieve, because the anger is so present, right? And how do you be intimate with someone when you feel so angry at them?
Well, I wouldn't suggest that they be intimate from the get-go. Like, it would take a few sessions at the very least to kind of get them to a place where they feel comfortable enough to do so. It's baby steps, it's gradual. I would never recommend that they just go off and do it right away. And I certainly don't force anyone to do anything against their will. Consent is very important and it has to be consensual. It's about what their comfort level is. And within a few therapy sessions, couples start to feel more comfortable, more at ease. Their guards are going down. They're less defensive. They're more, open to possibilities because they really love the other person and they're willing to do the work in order to, maintain that relationship.
I love that. And I love when I hear that about successful outcomes, right? Because, relationships are so important, and the love and the security you can feel in your relationship is so super important. Now, our podcast took a transition because I didn't expect us to speak about intimacy, but I do feel that that's an important topic. I want to go back to your work with couples and how you talked about it's really important to get to know them individually. That is an important part of couples therapy. And I want you to tell me a little bit about that. I want you to tell our listeners about that. And I want you to tell us about how you do that.
So I really do think that successful outcomes within a relationship really depends on how connected you are individually to yourself, how well you know yourself, what makes Joanna tick. What are your values? What are your norms? What are your beliefs? What's your historical formation? How did you grow up? What's your cultural background, right? Really getting to the root cause of who you are, because if there are voids that haven't been filled, if there's low self-esteem, if there's confidence issues, if there's, just traumas, unresolved traumas from an early childhood, that's going to play a role in your relationship and in your parenting if you have kids.
So the first step to couples therapy, or any therapy for that matter, is to really get to know that individual inside and out.
100%.
And to really go through a comprehensive intake around getting to know that individual, learning and hearing their story, right? So can you tell us a little bit about what a first session looks like?
Yeah. And just to piggyback off that, it's really learning also, like, what are their communication styles? What's their attachment styles? How do they resolve conflict? How did they resolve conflict in high school, right? That's going to play a role. What did they observe growing up with their parents? That's going to play a role. So in terms of a first session with a couple, I really gauge. Sometimes I don't need to do individual sessions from the get-go. I wait a few sessions with the couple first, and then I will book individual sessions with them thereafter. I really like to observe dynamics, and it's case by case, it's person to person, couple to couple, and if I find or I feel, because I read energy, that one individual is uncomfortable, I'll take breaks, or we'll regroup, or I'll just take their lead, right? Because this is their session, it's not my session. Yes, I'm there to listen, but at the end of the day, I believe that they are the experts of their own life, and they deep down know what's best for them. They just need to air it out in order to hear themselves, to be able to make that those decisions for their life.
And so, just to mention, like, talking about the intake, as marriage therapists or couples therapists, we pull from different modalities. And to get to know a couple and their story individually falls across every therapeutic modality in working with couples, like John Gottman and EFT, emotional focus therapy, and even the adult attachment interview. As you talk, I'm hearing you pull from all those modalities. Is that true?
100%. I've been trained. I've done a lot of research. I've read lots of books. I've had the privilege of working for Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation, and I've gotten a lot of training and a lot of knowledge under my belt in terms of what to utilize when. I'm also very strength-based and solution-focused, which also plays an element. It really depends on the client, like what do they need? And I'll pull from the various modalities, as you've mentioned, to help them navigate their journey in the best way possible. But it's case by case, almost like client by client, because every situation is different. There isn't a one size fits all approach. I wish there was, but there isn't. There's a lot of similarities. There are major themes, conflict resolution, I need communication help, but people are diverse and unique and special. And everybody comes from their own journeys. And I'm just here to listen and help them unpack it.
I couldn't agree with you more. There is not a one size approach to therapy. We can't put everybody in a box, right? Although in this podcast, Picking Up the Pieces, we will have general tools and general guidance that you can take in to your own individual situation and make some decisions around how to apply it. Because again, we really want not only our clients to achieve change, but anybody who's struggling, going through life issues to really work towards achieving change, greatness, connection, love, because all of you deserve that out there. I did have one last question around, I think sometimes clients call in and we offer like so much in-person therapy at Toronto Family Therapy and Mediation. And we do have 2 locations. But, our clients really wonder and ask questions about virtual therapy. Can that be effective with couples, for example? Tell us a little bit about your experience with that, because you're a hybrid. You do virtual and in person.
Well, thank you, COVID, for the virtual phenomenon.
Thank you, COVID.
Thank you, thank you, COVID. Really, in all honesty, I think it's been very, very beneficial for couples who wouldn't have ventured out into seeking therapy before because they're too busy. Everyone's busy. No one has the time or the energy or the bandwidth to come into the office for an in-person. And so virtual is just as good, if not even better, right? In my opinion, it's, they can do it at the comfort of their own home or during work hours. And, everyone's looking at each other, everyone's connecting virtually and just having the ability to connect and then spend quality time together thereafter in any capacity that they wish.
How do you do that? Like, how do you spend quality time after therapy?
It really, sometimes I encourage them to stay on the Zoom call, for instance, and spend time to connect, talk, debrief, plan for the next week, talk about expectations, because, okay, you usually call each other during the day, but do you really have a virtual call with your spouse during the day? And it makes the world of a difference. FaceTime each other, spend that time connecting in any capacity, with or without me. It'll help bridge gaps.
How good is debriefing and carrying on the therapeutic conversations once the therapist has left the room?
I think it's really crucial. I think it needs to be done more. And I think that, it's really just carving the time that they need and being purposeful with their time, energy, and prioritizing their relationship and really putting in the work in order to make that happen.
That's sometimes my favorite part of therapy. It's when couples told me how they debriefed afterwards, how they reflected on our conversation. I had one client who said to me, Joanna, you're always in our ear. I'm like, I'm always in your ear. They're like everywhere. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I don't want to take up all that space, but I love that you're following through with some of my recommendations outside of therapy.
Yeah. And a lot of the times they really like that accountability, right? They want to be able to share the good, what they've implemented. They don't want to waste time, money, and they're doing great stuff, I think, if they, are committed to the process.
What does lack of commitment to the process look like? I mean, we definitely see that. We see that a lot. We see lack of commitment, and we see one partner fully committed and the other partner out the door. Tell me about those scenarios.
It's a little bit more complicated to navigate those kinds of scenarios. That's where the individual work needs to happen, right? And me gauging, like, why aren't you committed? What's going on internally for you? What feelings is this raising for you to be, wanting to avoid this and not engage and give up, or, get a separation or divorce, right?
How
So
do you get them back in the door once the door has slammed?
it really depends on them. Half the time, I would say 95% of the time, they don't really want that. It's really just their ego and pride getting in the way, their unresolved issues getting in the way. It's just deep hurt and pain getting in the way, and it's a cop out, and I'll call them out on it, and they'll agree, and they'll say, you're right, and maybe this isn't how I feel, maybe this is the anger, maybe this is the resentment talking, which sometimes gets the best of you, and you really don't know what's real or what's anger, and you lead with the anger and the hurt pain, and you will end up making decisions that may not be in your best interest.
You are a pro at getting people back in the room. I've seen some people leave the room, and you are a pro at getting them back in.
I pull them, and I guess I don't berate or I threaten, and I don't use any kind of abusive ways to get them back. But, I challenge them. That's where the challenge comes in, right? I would rather you go through the motions and you speak, even if your voice shakes, versus run for the hills and not deal and not talk and avoid and make decisions based on an emotional reaction or response versus thinking in a regulated way.
What really strikes me, one more thing I want to touch on is the pain you talked about. People are out the door. People are resistant. People don't want to engage in these deep, meaningful conversations because they are in significant amounts of emotional pain. We always talk about physical pain, by the way, but we never speak about emotional pain. But that comes up a lot. So tell us about that.
It comes up a lot. It comes up in everyday interactions, whether it's with their spouse, whether it's with loved ones, whether it's with themselves. It comes out, it seeps out in different ways. Either it can be physical, could be through health, could be through mental health, could be any which way. It's all from pain. Everyone has pain, though. No one's going through life without some kind of pain, right? And so, just deal with it, work through it, figure out where is this pain coming from, and how do I self-soothe in a way that makes me feel better.
And there are so many people in so much pain, and the way to kind of get pain out or tell somebody they're in pain is by deeply crying, sometimes crying hysterically, or yelling. And we are adverse to both of those feelings. Like, everyone gets their back up when there's someone crying deeply or whether there's someone yelling. Don't you agree with that?
100%. But I'd rather the cries than the screams. And I think crying is therapeutic and it's necessary during the right place and time. And I think screaming, it is a way of expressing yourself, but it's not the most healthiest. And there's other ways to cope rather than reverting to that kind of behavior.
But why can't we cope with both? Why can't we just cope with the cries and the screams?
Because it's off-putting to the person who's around it, right? It puts their back up. They feel blamed. They feel ridiculed. They feel like, they can do no right. They're the ones who are, at the forefront of this emotional upheaval. And a lot of the times, if you're not a therapist, you don't know how to unpack it clinically. And it's a lot for somebody to bear. And nobody likes to feel blamed. Nobody likes to feel like they're in the hot seat. Nobody likes to have their fingers being pointed at them. And then they react, and then it's a snowball effect of no return. And that's how conflict ensues.
Really good explanation, honestly. Well, I've learned a lot from you, so I'm glad I'm going to take it home and apply it to all of my clients. But I hope that our clients and not our clients, let's rephrase, our listeners can really take, some of the words that Nicole said, some of the advice, some of the guidance, some of the words that I said, and really use it to connect with themselves, to connect with their partners, to show love, to receive love. Just remember that wherever you are, whoever you are not broken. You are not behind. You are not unhuman. Like, we are all human, and you are allowed to get some help. You are allowed to listen to podcasts like Picking Up the Pieces, or you're allowed to get some therapy and get some professional help. So please do not wait until things fall apart for you or you're really struggling. Get help when you're in an okay place, even when you're in a good place. That is totally reasonable and totally allowed. And I really appreciated everybody listening today. So thank you so much.